You're listening to The Voluntary Life, where you can hear ideas for finding freedom in an unfree world. Visit thevoluntarylife.com to connect with the show and hear all past episodes. Here's your host, Jake.
Hi, it's Jake here. Welcome to The Voluntary Life. One of the topics that comes up on the live streams that I do with patrons of The Voluntary Life is the topic of finding purpose in life. And in this episode, I'm going to share with you excerpts from 2 live streams that I've had with supporting listeners about this topic. If you enjoy these conversations, you will definitely enjoy the other bonus episodes that you can get access to by becoming a supporting listener of The Voluntary Life. There are now 80 bonus episodes that you can get access to with great conversations like the ones that these clips in this episode are taken from. And if you do enjoy The Voluntary Life, I would really appreciate you supporting the show by becoming a patron. You can find out more in the links that I'll put in the show notes, or go directly to my website, thevoluntarylife.com. So here are 2 conversations about finding purpose in life. The first clip that you're about to hear started off as a conversation about productivity. We were talking about the challenge of getting on top of things with a productivity system. It's only when you get on top of things in your day-to-day life that you can really start thinking about wider topics of purpose in life, but it's very hard to get productivity habits going and keep a system going. Often things get chaotic again, which can be quite disheartening. So that's where we had got to in this conversation, and here's the clip. Everybody who does GTD and everybody who tries to have their own productivity systems falls off the wagon at various stages and gets to a point where they're not working on their goals as they actually had wanted to, and they're not keeping their system up to date in the way that they had wanted to. The key differentiator is not whether or not things get messy sometimes, but whether or not you actually become disheartened by that, and whether or not you can just maybe declare bankruptcy on that whole series of notes that you were going to sort and just start again and just, clean things up and get going with a system that you can manage and can keep on top of. Because the resilience is the thing that's going to keep you going. If you can not get disheartened by the fact that it is really difficult to have your own goals in life and to have your own purpose in life. It's so hard that the vast majority of people just stumble along doing way, way less than what you're doing now. So the big picture is that trying to be conscious about finding your own purpose in life and deciding your own purpose in life and your own goals and really going for it is so much higher level functioning than the level that the majority of people get to in life, that even if, frankly, it's kind of a mess, then at least you're working on it. And as long as you keep working on it and keep going, you will get better at all of these things in terms of your own estimation of how fulfilling you're finding it to do it. And you just got to grit your teeth and just keep going.
Yeah, I'm so new to it where I and intellectually, hey, it takes time. It's going to start out really messy. 10 years from now, I'm going to be way more refined in a lot of things, including how I get things done. But yeah, I guess it's sort of along that path is the creeping doubt of oh man, things are going well, but also how much better could they be if I was just a little bit more disciplined here and there?
Yeah, here's the crux of it. This is something that made a big impression on me when I really understood it. I remember a quote, and I think it's the guy who did The Power of Less. Babota is his name, I think. He's written a couple of books on productivity and does a lot of different stuff on acquiring different skills and so forth. And he once said, the only ability that has really made the difference for me has been the ability to be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. I can't remember exactly how he put it, but basically his point was that the thing that really made the difference for him was being okay with feeling uncomfortable. And the reason that came to mind for me is that getting your shit together in life and deciding on your goals and going for your goals, the moment you start to do that, you immediately start putting yourself in a situation where you're feeling disappointed with yourself, where you're feeling frustrated with yourself, where you're constantly presenting yourself with evidence of how your life isn't in alignment with your goals. and it isn't where you want it to be, because goal setting by its very nature is giving you that information like, oh, okay, so your life is not where you want it to be. And that's super uncomfortable. And that's why people stop doing it. That's why people stop trying to live more consciously, because taking a hard look at your life and being conscious about it and the things that you're doing, looking at your past and thinking about your goals, whenever you do this, you're constantly confronting yourself with essentially frustrating and disappointing and unpleasant and sometimes really difficult feedback. And so the most important ability is to be able to actually stomach that so that you can use that information to continue with your quest, with your, the mission that you're on to improve your life. And that is so important. And my initial instinctive reaction, as is everyone else's, when I get information that shows that my life is not as good or as sorted or as on track as I would want it to be, my initial instinctive reaction is, I don't really want to hear that. And I don't really enjoy looking at that. And so you sort of have to steel yourself to push through the discomfort. Your question was quite general, because I think what you're talking about is a general sense of unease that you experience in this process, that things are not quite as sorted on your productivity system as that you would like, and you don't feel somehow you're not quite as far along your goal towards your goals as you would like to be. So you're asking me these general questions, and I think my feedback is that what is positive about what you're doing is you are demonstrating the fact that you are putting yourself in an uncomfortable position, because sorting your shit out, it hurts, it's not fun. And that's why people don't do it. So in a way, some of the issues that you're dealing with don't have a solution, because it's not necessarily going to be fun, a lot of this stuff. It is going to involve you feeling like, that's not quite as great as I would like it to be. There's a graphic that I once posted on the Patreon thing that you can probably find there, which is a graphic showing the life of a project. It starts out, you're thinking, this is going to be awesome. And then it goes into this pit of despair of like, oh, nothing works and this is useless. And then the project ends up like with a little upswing, like, okay, this kind of worked out, so you got to go through that pit to get to the point where you reach the other side. And so maybe there isn't a practical, clever tip that I can give you for some of this stuff, except that the reason that you are experiencing some of the discomfort is because you're actually doing the work. And so few people are willing to do the fucking work to get their lives in order because they don't want to feel that discomfort. And so in a way, good for you. You're going through it. And yeah, some of it's not going to be fun, unfortunately. That was the first conversation that I wanted to play you. Here's part of another conversation also about the question of finding purpose in life.
In the pursuit for a life of more freedom, quitting the rat race, and I read your book, Job Free, and there's one of the methods which is unjobbing, and all of this about following your passion, quitting the rat race. I suppose you must have come across a few people that have done this, pursued their dreams, left the 9-to-5 jobs. And I think on the internet, I think we're living some times where actually we're coming across a lot of stories on the internet where people make it seem sometimes so easy that it is to just quit your office life and go traveling. And it's something I aspire to, and part of the voluntary life and your book gave me that desire or increased that desire. But at the same time, something I'm curious about is, have you ever come across the stories where it didn't go so well and actually people failed miserably by leaving a stable career and following their passion? Because I think we hear about the stories where I think people are really happy, and maybe the stories where everything doesn't go so well maybe they're not so talked about. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of examples where I can.
I understand this is can be a complicated question, and maybe the answer is simply you haven't met people.
Well, no. What I will say is that I don't think there's any option in life that is guaranteed to work. There's a huge amount of failure in anything you choose. Okay, here's something I can say. When we've been traveling, we have definitely met people. Oh, obviously, when you travel, you meet a lot of expats. Wherever you go, you're bound to meet a lot of expats, especially if you're not super fluent in the local language. You're just going to meet expats because people are looking for good, cheap places to stay that you're able to get by on relatively limited command of the language. And so you all end up going to similar places too. And also because if you're traveling, then you want to go to nice beaches and stuff, and that's where expats go. So we've obviously met a lot of other travelers during our travels. And we met great people and weird people and lots of everything in between. And sometimes I think people choose a lifestyle of travel, for example, just because they want to run away. They want to run away from everything, from their whole life in general. And they're so unhappy, or were so unhappy in the country that they grew up in, that they just want to get away. But they haven't, in that process, they haven't actually processed what it is that was going on for them that got them into that situation. They haven't processed the issues that they have. So, for example, we've certainly seen a lot of people traveling who are using a lot of drugs and drinking and that kind of stuff. And they're not happy. I don't think they are genuinely living the... If you were able to catch them in a really reflective, truthful moment with themselves, I don't think they're living the dream life that they would have. I think they're still running. So that totally can happen. And also, I've found unhappy people in every field that I've been in. When I did a PhD, it just so happens that I really enjoyed doing a PhD. I thought it was I was very interested in the topic that I was researching. I was very interested in learning what I was learning about. By the end, I definitely wanted to be done with it and move on, and I had other plans. But in general, I really enjoyed doing it, and I met loads of people doing PhDs who were deeply unhappy, who were doing PhDs in a way just because that was what they fell into doing. And so, that's just to say, I met unhappy travelers, but I also met unhappy PhD students, and I've met unhappy people in offices too. So I don't think that quitting the rat race solves people's problems, because being in an office job is only one aspect of what's going on in life. I have found that a very important part of the process of changing my career and changing my lifestyle very significantly was the stuff that I did that was nothing to do with my job, that was nothing to do with money. It wasn't to do with selling a business, and it wasn't to do with stopping, being a pedestrian movement consultant and changing that. A very important part was the stuff that I did, which was about myself and questioning my own relationships and what it was that I wanted from my personal life, and what it was that I felt proud of myself about, and what it was that I actually, when I was really honest with myself, lacked integrity on, and the things that I wasn't happy about the way that I was living. And so some of the very significant changes that came about through that for me was that during that process of, for want of a better word, doing a lot of self-work and trying to reevaluate what it was that I was doing with my life as a person, not just in my job, but in my personal relationships, I ended a very long-term relationship. And I also had, some very, very difficult conversations with family members about stuff that had happened in the past. And I broke off contact with some people in my life. And I had a difficult time. And in the process too, I also ended up getting into a new stage of my life where I was able to start what I think is a far healthier relationship with the woman who I'm now married to, with my wife. And I was able to, in myself, go through a process where I questioned a lot of the things about myself that I felt I hadn't had integrity on in the past. Like I hadn't in my 20s and in my earlier relationships, I hadn't really valued being faithful in relationships, and actually hadn't really invested in relationships in the way that I understand is important now. And that certainly didn't make me happy. It wasn't stuff. I was doing stuff in my 20s that ultimately I wasn't proud of, and it didn't feel like it was living the life that I wanted to live. And that stuff had nothing to do with money and nothing to do with my job. But it was a very important part of the process for me of changing my life and the way that I felt I could really feel proud of myself and feel like I was living my values and that I was moving towards the kind of life that was meaningful to me. So I do think, obviously, I talk about the importance of financial independence because I think it's so powerful as a way to help you find the kind of lifestyle that you want. But there's a whole side of changing your life that's got nothing to do with your job, that's got everything to do with deciding what kind of a person do you want to be in your personal relationships, and actually trying to be honest with yourself about the ways in which you don't really, or you haven't lived up to the kind of person that you feel that you should be. And when you take on that challenge of actually trying to change the way that you behave in your personal relationships, some relationships go by the wayside, and sometimes you have to break off contact with people who you don't feel like want to live the same kind of values that you do. But it also opens you up to new relationships in life, and it can open you up to, you know, the opportunity to have much healthier relationships too. So that's the thing that comes to mind for me when you're talking about people who quit the rat race. I think if you only focus on the job and you only focus on leaving an office but don't think about what it is that you want from your life on a more holistic level, and what you want from your relationships and the parts of your life that don't have anything to do with money or job. For example, you know, what you want from being a parent and how you want to live if you choose to go down that route in life, and what your values are going to be. I know that having gone through a process of really trying to identify for myself what kind of a person I want to be, and really being critical of myself, it got me to a point where now I feel like I can be a much better parent than I would have been if I had had a kid in my 20s. I'm not proud to say I don't think I would have been a very good parent compared to the kind of parent I am now. So that's a whole nother side of changing your life is the stuff that's nothing to do with money and nothing to do with business. And a lot of the people I see who've quit the rat race and who are unhappy, I think the issue is they haven't actually thought about those other aspects of their life.
Exactly. It makes a lot of sense, that last part, where everything you say, but yeah, especially that last part. Yes, work is just one of the aspects of life, or in GTD terms, one of the areas of responsibility.
Right, exactly. If you want to think about it in GTD terms, that's a good way to think about it. Like there's no, if you just sort out your work and you don't address the other aspects of your life, then you haven't finished the job,
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant answer. Very inspiring. Thank you very much, Jake.
Thank you for listening to The Voluntary Life. If you like this podcast, please show your support by becoming a patron of The Voluntary Life on Patreon. Your support will help to grow and improve the show, and you'll get access to a treasure trove of rewards, including bonus episodes. Visit thevoluntarylife.com to learn more.